seat.
Well, welcome, and you may start with your opening statement whenever you're ready.
Okay, good morning.
Thank you.
Thank you. Well, good morning, Chairperson Law and members of the Commission. Thank you all for being here today. Thank you for the time that you've given to me and to all the applicants in preparation for today. I know it's very meaningful to me and to all of them, I'm sure. I want to cover three main areas in my opening comments with you this morning. I want to cover who I am as a person, who I am as a professional, and how my appointment to the Court of Appeals would enhance that court. Who I am as a person, first, I grew up in Dow City, Iowa. That is a small town of 500 people in Crawford County in western Iowa. My parents were very young, and I sometimes describe my upbringing as three orphans raising each other. It wasn't always easy, but it really made me the person I am today, which means I learned to handle responsibility and kind of take care of myself early on in life. I was lucky in that I had a great public school in my town, and that was where I found my respite. That was a place I could go and dream about my future, and I loved learning, especially reading and writing and government. I'm a little bit of a government nerd. In the summertime, I walked beans and I played softball like so many people, young girls do in the state of Iowa. I'm the first person in my family to go to college, and so it's a little surprising that I just always have known that I wanted to be a lawyer. While most 10 or 12-year-olds maybe were watching the Fonz on Happy Days, I actually was watching The Paper Chase, which for those of you that don't know was a movie and then a TV series about a Midwestern boy who went off to an Ivy League law school and all the trials and tribulations that occurred thereafter. Well, I didn't go to an Ivy League law school, but I went to Creighton University after high school. And I studied journalism and English because I loved reading and writing. I also went to Creighton so I could live in Omaha, Nebraska. My aunt and uncle had just opened a new restaurant business, and it allowed me a place to go and work and where I waited tables and catered just to pay the bills while I was in college. After graduating from Creighton, I immediately went to Creighton Law School, and I accomplished my lifelong goal of becoming a lawyer, which cemented my love for the law and for writing. And I continued working the entire time that I was in both undergrad and law school. Professionally, I've had a diverse legal career, as I've already discussed with many of you, and I continued working for my aunt and uncle's business after I graduated from law school. By that time, they had grown this small one-room coffee shop into a business of multiple locations in Omaha, other locations in Nebraska, Iowa, Kansas, and Memphis, Tennessee. Just a couple years later, however, that business took a little turn for the worse, and I found myself without a job. What I had to do was go and apply for jobs, and that's exactly what I did. One of the jobs that I applied for was actually a grant writing position with the Omaha Housing Authority, where I thought my education and writing would certainly be of some value. When I went in to interview with the executive director, he ended up offering me a temporary attorney job instead of that grant writing job, which I happily accepted, and I will forever be grateful. While I was at the Housing Authority, I litigated hundreds of eviction cases, and where part of those included evictions for criminal activity based on the then newly enacted one-strike federal housing law policy. The Housing Authority was not only rewarding professionally but personally for me, as I volunteered many hours to improving the lives of public housing residents, and in particular the children that lived in public housing. A couple of years later, I was offered a position with a small in-house law firm who was offering, they were representing a new business, and they were offering employment and corporate law services. That is where I worked for 7 years, and during that time I continued to litigate cases off and on behalf of the Housing Authority. In 2003, I made the biggest switch of my career when I took a job at the Potawatomi County Attorney's Office. When I was at the County Attorney's Office, I managed the civil practice for the office. That was something that my newly elected county attorney boss was not interested in doing, and I was very interested in doing. The County Attorney's Office there employs about 14 attorneys, additional staff, and they process about 6,000 cases through the office every year. It was really during this 15 years working at the County Attorney's Office that I discovered my true love for public service. My position at the County Attorney's Office allowed me to be a part of many many projects making a positive impact in my community, including building out an interoperable 911 radio system, economic development projects, and unfortunately also recovering from devastating floods, not once but twice while I was there. While at the County Attorney's Office, I provided civil legal advice to the county's elected officials and department heads on every topic from applications for employment to zoning matters. I litigated and worked with outside counsel on civil rights claims, on insurance claims, employment matters. I handled all county infractions for every county department from conservation to planning. I also litigated all of the office's post-conviction cases on behalf of the state of Iowa. Over those 15 years, I loved every aspect of my job, but the post-conviction cases really became my passion. For those of you who aren't as familiar with post-conviction cases, they're very similar to a criminal appeal. They involve reviewing a criminal defendant's criminal record file and reviewing it for errors to determine whether the defendant might be entitled to a new trial or a new guilty plea proceeding. So I look for errors in that, reviewing the record, reviewing what happened, interviewing the defense attorney, and moving forward with the case. Post-conviction cases are technically civil proceedings subject to the rules of civil procedure, but these cases require a deep and thorough understanding of criminal law, criminal procedure, and case law interpreting both. I've given a number of presentations on post-conviction procedure to the statewide Iowa County Attorneys Association, to the Iowa State Bar, and to the new judges at the Judicial Branch. My 15 years at the County Attorney's Office really ignited my love for the law and for public service, and I've been honored to continue that public service, serving the past 3 years as a district court judge in the 4th Judicial District, which serves Potawatomi County, Council Bluffs, and 9 other rural counties in southwest Iowa. I think I've already discussed with many of you in our conversations how I believe I would enhance the court with my personal and professional integrity, my strong work ethic, my personal compassion for others, my commitment to justice, my pleasant and patient judicial temperament, and my passion for the law. But I suspect that these are words and phrases that you will hear from many of the candidates today, and I certainly hope you do. So in summary, I just want to focus a little bit on what I believe sets me apart from other candidates today. First of all, public service. I think it was President Teddy Roosevelt who said, "Much has been given to us, and so rightfully much will be expected." And that's a mantra that I kind of try to live by. While I didn't come from wealth, I certainly understand and recognize the many gifts that I have been given in my life. My personal philosophy is to pay those gifts forward and to try to leave the world around me just a little bit better than I found it. Whether mentoring young people in my community, volunteering at my church, treating a difficult litigant with patience and respect, or helping a colleague research an issue on Westlaw, my demonstrated experience as a hardworking, humble servant leader would certainly make a positive impact on the court. Second, my wide variety of legal experience. The Court of Appeals sees a wide variety and a high volume of cases. As an attorney working in all those different areas at the County Attorney's Office, and also as a district court judge, I too have always carried a heavy workload and have seen a wide variety of cases. When I was appointed to the bench in 2018, I was new and didn't obviously have any experience on the bench and in many of those areas of law, but I inherited a busy, full, active docket from day one. It was a little overwhelming, I'll be honest, but I just put my head down and I pushed through it. I know that rich legal experience and proven ability to carry a caseload will help me tackle any new role on the Court of Appeals both effectively and efficiently. Finally, my experience and expertise with post-conviction cases makes me uniquely qualified for the Court of Appeals. Post-conviction cases involve, as I said, both elements of civil and criminal law, as well as criminal appeals. They currently make up a large percentage of the Court of Appeals docket, and I've already spent 15 years of my legal career working on just these issues. I have briefed in depth these post-conviction and criminal appeal legal issues, and I've taught other lawyers and new judges about handling post-conviction cases. It's these 15 years of dissecting criminal case records and briefing the variety of criminal law issues within these cases that really moved me to apply for the Court of Appeals position. This experience, coupled with my work the last 3 years as a district court judge, where I've gained experience in the area of court procedures, trial procedures, and family law and probate matters, would allow me to make an immediate and positive impact on the Court of Appeals. Again, I thank you all for your time today, and I would be happy to answer any questions that you might have for me. Thank you.
Commissioner Gray?
Thank you. Thanks. Good morning.
Good morning.
I think I was your first interview, and I'm going to ask you the first question.
Okay, perfect.
As we look for candidates to fill this spot on the Court of Appeals, we have many candidates that are district court judges.
Mm-hmm.
Do you think is an important factor that at least a good portion of the Court of Appeals are former or district court judges? And if so, why?
Thank you for the question. You know what, I do. While I would have been, I think, equipped to handle a lot of cases on the Court of Appeals, based on my experience in the county attorney's office, I can tell you that my 3 years on the district court bench have been invaluable to me. No attorney has that perfect experience in every area. And so as a district court judge, you cover every area that someone in the Court of Appeals would. In addition, on the Court of Appeals, you're judging judges' actions. And so I do find that it is helpful, or that it would be helpful to me, to be able to more appropriately question judges' discretion and how they've made that if I had served as a district court judge. And so I do think my 3 years has been very invaluable and very helpful to serving on the Court of Appeals.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Commissioner Muller?
All right, no questions, thanks.
Thank you.
Ms. Conover?
No questions. Thank you.
Commissioner Sinclair?
No questions.
Thank you.
Morning, Judge.
Good morning.
The recommendations of people who know you and have been before you have been really glowing. And one thing I wanted to ask you about is something about the institutional stance of the court.
Mm-hmm.
There's been a loss of public confidence in all sorts of public institutions, Congress, the executive, and so forth. What do you think that, if there is one, the role of an individual judge in enhancing public confidence in the appellate court of Iowa?
Well, first of all, I think it's very important to have procedures and like this, where you are all representatives of the communities that you come from. And in the same way, I think it's important for a statewide court to include people that come from their communities and have backgrounds that are similar to them, because it makes us relatable, right? So I think that's important. I think it's important that you're a person of integrity and that you have that background and history. I think today, you're right, we live in a time where people are very suspicious of those in positions of authority, which again is why I think it's important for the courts to be accessible. I think that they go out and hold arguments in other public places other than just here in Des Moines, I think is really important, kind of demystifies what the court does, and that they are actually made up of real human beings. So I think all those things are really important to maintaining the integrity of the court. I think, through COVID, we've all learned how to do things electronically and kind of opened up yet another level of accessibility. I think all those things have been great changes over this past year. Even though we've kind of suffered through them, I think that it's one silver lining to that cloud. And I think all those things are really important to help people understand what we do, the role of the judicial branch versus other branches of government, and that, despite what we see on the news a lot, those really shouldn't cross over into each other. So,
Thank you.
yeah, thank you.
Commissioner Reyes?
Good morning.
Good morning.
One of the things I find very interesting about your application is you spent a significant of time developing and learning to practice in a different state.
Mm-hmm.
How do you find that impacts you in your current role?
Well, I think it gives me some openness and understanding to new ideas, and that people do things in different ways, and it doesn't mean one way is right or one way is wrong. I'm on the CLE Commission, for example, and I know the state of Nebraska actually bought the state of Iowa's software to run their system. So, but I do think it really gives you kind of a more expansive history to pull from and draw from. In Omaha, litigating was very busy and very urban. Council Bluffs was kind of refreshing in that it was more small town, which is what I grew up with and what I really enjoyed and felt comfortable with. But I appreciated the experience that I had there, and what I learned from practicing in a more urban area as well. So I do think it just enriches us to come from a variety of backgrounds, gain that experience, because it turns us into who we are, and that's important to have all those different experiences, so you bring that and share that with others.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Commissioner Bevel?
Judge, I heard you this morning describe yourself as a government nerd.
I am a little bit.
When I hear that, I think it has ramifications about policy.
Mm-hmm.
What does that tell us about the type of appellate judge you would be?
Okay, thank you. You know, what I mean by that is that I have a great interest in it, and also a great love and a great respect for it. In that way, I realize what an honor it is to serve, what a privilege, but also the responsibility that comes with that. I think it's important to know history so that we don't repeat it, at least the negative parts. I think it's important for me for me, what it means is that I bring experience, a love to it, energy to it. I don't think it's something that just happens or is a nameless, faceless thing, but it is a face of people that really do represent all of our communities, and we should be that for all of our communities. And so that's what it means to me. I love it, but it's not always correct. I don't accept everything that government officials do, and I think it's right to question them, because really all of us are representatives of our community, and we should act accordingly.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Commissioner Valentine?
No questions.
Thank you.
Commissioner Hanson?
Tell me about an ethical dilemma you've had over a case.
Well, I've had this question a few times, and I have to admit that I struggle with it, which I think maybe is good. I'm not sure. Because I think our goal always as an attorney practicing is to avoid ethical dilemmas, right? As a government employee, I always had to be very careful to remember what my responsibility was and who my responsibility was to. And that was always to the entity first, not necessarily to the person or the actor on behalf of the county. There were times of which, we sought different counsel for a particular case or reason because we wanted to ensure that there was adequate and sometimes different representation to look after individuals. Working as a government employee, I knew that there were times where, my role was more to represent supervisory employees, and it was essential for me to remember that employees also had a right, especially because we had collectively bargained employees, and they had a right to representation during meetings. And so looking out for all of those interests and applying them fairly in any environment has happily helped me avoid serious ethical issues, just dealing with them head on when they face you first.
Commissioner Goodman?
Judge Reyes, thank you for your application.
Thank you.
We're charged as a commission to select the 3 most qualified candidates, and obviously you're on the district court and have experience like 6 other judges do. You've mentioned coming from different communities, and I think we've been asked to consider people geographically and why geographic diversity is important. Can you discuss with us to educate us on that from your perspective, what's important about geographic diversity on the court? And then is geographic diversity a place, a population? I mean, what are we to consider when we consider diversity, and what weight should we give it in evaluating applicants?
Okay, thank you. Well, in my mind, I do think it is important. My experience, for example, working in the Pottawatomie County Attorney's Office, Pottawatomie County was the 2nd largest geographic county in the state of Iowa. On one side, it was very rural and had, very rural issues. On the other side, it's attached to Omaha, Nebraska, and it had very urban issues, and we had a lot of serious crime that came through the office. I very frequently felt that, connection between that confluence between urban and rural issues, because we had a 5-member board of supervisors that I had to work with, and many of them were from rural areas. And so my experience growing up in a small town helped me to get along with people in that way. But they come with a different mindset, and getting back to Commissioner Bevel's question about, trust in government a little bit, I think it helps when you have individuals that are representative from different areas that have different backgrounds. It helps with that public confidence in the court. We're all lawyers, so we all have the same skill set. Many of us, as you pointed out, are judges. We have a lot of the same skill sets. But it does add confidence to the decision, to the body itself, and to the decisions they make when they can look at that body and say, that represents me. Even though someone from southeast Iowa or northeast Iowa might also come from a rural community, I do think it's important and means something to the people throughout the state if people come from different areas. I know we do have representatives from western Iowa on the appellate courts, and so I do appreciate that from my own perspective. How much weight it should give, clearly it's not a legal requirement, right? So you don't have to give it any weight. But I do think it adds to the confidence in this entity and the court itself to have representation from across the state. So I do think it should be a consideration, although it's not your ultimate consideration.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you, Judge Reyes.
Thank you.
Our time is up for today.
Thank you.
And we thank you for your application, and we wish you the best.
Thank you very much. I appreciate your time. Thank you.